Hi everyone, I'm Greg Newman, CEO of Onyx Capital Group. So today I'm going to talk about one of the key speculative bubbles that occurred and has burst now as we got into January 2020 with the switch from non-compliant to compliant fuel for the IMO regulations. So this is a graph focusing on gas oil futures versus 3.5% residual fuel. 3.5% was the old shipping fuel, and gas oil is the distillate, like a key indicator for the distillate market. So this differential way back in mid-2019 was around $30 a barrel, and the expectation was we were going to have an increase in price because gas oil was going to be ran more in ships, and all the shipping fuel was going to be more closely related to gas oil than it was this old shipping fuel, therefore the differential should blow out. So what we saw was this really steady rise from around mid-2019 all the way up until literally the end of kind of November, December. And then as we got to January, we got an absolute collapse. Now, if we go to the other slide, this is classic speculative bubbles. So, we use this graph quite a lot to kind of model, times where we do think there's a bubble, and it's all here for you to see. It's quite nicely laid out. So we had the initial stealth phase or the takeoff, and the kind of people who first kind of thought about this, and what we call it like the first mover advantage. So I was in panels last year talking about the potential impact of the IMO change, and a lot of people talk like they know what's going to happen, and ultimately the major oil houses, the trade houses who do a lot of the volume of the derivative market and do a lot of the physical, everyone's looking to see what they think because they're the ones I guess people think should know. So a lot of them came up with this quite wide and publicly told mantra that we're going to have a blowout in this differential. So you've got the kind of initial takeoff, and then you get the immediate attention, the enthusiasm and all the greed that comes with the herd as all the herd kind of piles in and joins in on this trade, and that's exactly what we saw. Now the real interesting bit is, how can you predict that you're kind of at the top of the bubble? Now if you go back to this other slide again, it's actually so easily to compare the two graphs, because as we got into November, you had such a decent profits from this trade if you were an early entry, that this is probably where you start to see some taking profit, and for sure the market was starting to falter. So you have this kind of dip as maybe they was taking profit, or the market was kind of forcing itself there, and actually at this point there was starting to be more of the new physical fuel oil starting to change hands. But then we had it kind of pop back up again, and if you go back to the graph again, this we call a bull trap. So we've come back off, and there's a bit of denial here, like, oh, it will come back, kind of the classic cognitive biases you get, and we call this bit a bull trap and a return to normal. So it's gone back and said, yeah, see, it's just a slight dip, this is just what happens in the market. But then, go back to another graph again, as we got into this, the first day of January, this is when the physical actually started to price relative to the derivative. So for the longest time, this is forward-looking. The forward-looking price was saying, that's the expectation, therefore that's what I'm going to trade. So in a weird way, you had the paper pricing the physical once you got to January. But of course, the physical was never going to align to this differential, because the fuel oil was way too low, to the point where you had all this incremental demand increase from people wanting to burn direct fuel because it was so cheap, or even put it in the refiners because it was literally half the price of crude. But also distillates, this is the thing, and fundamentally it didn't make sense, because it's nothing to do with distillates. The new fuel going into shipping engines is marine fuel, not marine distillates. I think that was a big mistake in people's thinking. So either way, you had this kind of collapse, and this differential was just not sustainable. And why did we get such an aggressive collapse all the way through? I mean, all the way back through to the initial entrance and through again, because of the herd mentality and the kind of sheer volume in the market. And this is exactly what happens. So again, going back to the other graph, fear, capitulation and despair. This is what happens. You have the fear being like, what's actually going on? This doesn't make sense. And for the people who came in late, because they came in, greed, they want to be involved in it. You see the same with Bitcoin. You don't want to miss out with it, and so you pile in, but you're piling in at a price where the early movers are already well in the money, so they're looking to actually take profit. And one of the key things that exacerbated this scenario was the new money from hedge funds. So some hedge funds came in, a very clear and obvious trade to pile in, a scale trade, saying the shipping fuel is changing, buy this differential, this against this, kind of simple for investors to understand. And I think that was the majority of why we saw such a pile-in. But of course, these guys were late to the party. They don't have the physical knowledge or understanding. And of course, when we had this retracement from, again, all the smart money kind of taking profit and the physical aligning to the paper, they didn't know what to do. So there's only really one one thing left to do, and that's to stop out. But of course, in a classic herd scenario, like you'd see with animals in the Sahara, everyone trying to run away at the same time, you get trampled on, everyone's running for the exit door, and not only does it go back to the original price, we fall through it because it's just about getting out of it. And as you can see, this is the despair bit, and we're kind of still in this scenario right now where you just have to get out of your position. And obviously the biggest losers are the people that had the most cognitive bias. And as they're going down, you've got everything from anger, denial, bargaining. If it just goes back up, I'll sell it then. But the market's not going to let go because there's just too many people on one side. There's no one left on the other side to take the other side. And so you just have nothing left but to just keep selling a low number. And of course, it's been quite destructive for the industry. We're only in January, and already the hedge funds are performing very badly. The third year running, they're performing very badly. And the people that are laughing all the way to the bank are the early movers, who kind of were first movers, but also were able to kind of project this is what's going to happen with confidence, and then people coming in and buying into it. So you've got to be very careful with media attention and enthusiasm and herd mentality, because this is the exact scenario you get almost every time. We've talked about this again and again and again. You can listen to a podcast talking about it. I was talking about last year, are we in a speculative bubble? We've talked about this a lot. But here is just a classic kind of well-mapped scenario of exactly what does happen when you don't pay attention. So thanks very much for listening. Hi there, hope you enjoyed that video. This is the exact type of information and intricate analysis we're providing on Onyx Insight on a daily basis. You get access to the kind of information that you cannot get anywhere else, because the swaps market is notoriously difficult to get that kind of information. All you need to do is go to our website, onyxcapitaladvisory.com, and you can sign up for a free trial, and you will get instant information directly to your phone or any medium of your choosing. Thanks very much.